Hello, everybody. This is your host, Christian, and today we have Natalia. Natalia, welcome to the Ledger Show.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, so before jumping into today's topics, can you tell us a little bit about your current role and what you're doing there?
Yeah, sure. Well, for I'm in finance slash systems for slash data analysis for 15 years in total, and from which like 8.5 I spent in a company called PVH, where I created a team called Finance Systems, but practically a team of finance key users, let's say, who are in between business, systems, accounting, finance, etc., helping building end-to-end automated process. And then the last year, I moved to a smaller company. So that one was a very big one, and a smaller company, SaaS. So it's a software as a service, completely remote. The work is remote, everything is remote, and of course they are also using like I don't know 200 different other SaaS softwares, and the guys are in the market for quite a bit as a scale up, but they did not really put much time before an accounting and finance tool stack. And therefore, I practically completely redesigned their system landscape in this sense, and the business flows, finance flows, yeah, from purchasing to the banking, and of course, the sales to cash process is the most complex for them. Yeah, so that's more or less what I do.
Yeah, I think there is a super interesting part about your story is that you moved from a really big company. I think it's between 5,000, 10,000 people, no more,
Well,
to
PVH is a holding, right? So they report to
okay.
US. So actually, there is a lot of people. In Amsterdam office, there is 1,500, something like this. In Europe, I think, yeah, 10, 15,000, maybe like this, something.
Okay, so it's pretty big. Um, so it's interesting that you moved from a company of such a scale to, let's say, a tiny startup compared
Yeah,
to the previous size.
yeah.
Um,
Well, the reason is why I wanted to try to work in a smaller company because I wanted to actually build it from scratch myself. Here and for Virtuagym, the company that I work for now, is not a new company though. So they actually have quite a lot of history already. Even though the finance system tool stack going to be completely new for them, there is a lot of historical data which I have to deal with, of course, now. So, but yeah, that's more flexibility in a small company. At the same time, the downside is that you have to do everything yourself. So yeah, because there's not many people. Yeah, so I am implementing softwares. I'm doing architecture. I'm testing. I'm doing data cleansing. Everything. Yeah, from beginning to the end. Purchasing softwares, so on.
I have a question, like, and hopefully you can help me answering this. Like, what was behind the need for your current company to actually hiring you? Like, it was a problem with their current finance stack that basically was just falling apart.
Yes, yes, a lot of manual process, a lot of exceptions, which are not really exceptions but the rule already. Mainly, it's due to the fact that they are using an accounting tool. This is not even an ERP, and the company is small. However, if we speak about like the revenue value, it's not that big, but in the same time amount of transactions a month, it's a lot. So they have around 6,000 invoices a month. That's quite a lot for handling through Excel and yeah, tools like this. So because they use this tool for too long, they got a huge mess, of course, within the process, data, etc. Because, like for example, they run the business mainly on Salesforce, but Salesforce is absolutely not connected to the accounting tool at all. So of course, you can imagine when you have so much data, they got really, really buried with manual work. So yeah, but then if you want to change the accounting software, you need to change a lot of things around the accounting software. During this time, I practically figure out that there is, like, let's say, if I divide all the tool stack into like three categories, it would be like the one that deals with the big companies, very expensive, so SAP, Oracle platforms, and around it. And then the ones that I'm dealing with now, like NetSuite, there is a Sage Intacct, for example, they have their tool stack within that price category that are working with each other, right, integration wise and so on. And then there is really, really for small companies, this is like accounting tool that we use right now. It's called the Exact Online, but this is much smaller. And for them, there is also pluses to use it. There is connectivity to the Dutch bank, for example. If you're in Netherlands, that's really good to use. But once you grow as a company, you have to switch to another layer of this tool stack. So
I see. I want to dig into this later, but um, so you change job and your new task is okay. You need to build a finance automation from scratch. Where did you start?
well, you start, of course, with choosing your core business and finance solution, right? So if it's a big company, that's usually the core is a platform as SAP or Oracle. But if it's there is another one, Workday as well, is coming really very, very strong recently. But that's completely different price category, right? Here we speak about NetSuite, Sage Intacct. So you choose. I look for a few other a bit smaller tools, but yeah, NetSuite for its flexibility and amount of different tools that are connected to this, and amount of consultants around the world, also that you can run the business around the world, and practically you can scale the business together with it. So yeah, that's what seemed to be like a more or less solid solution for that money again. And then you start, okay, I'm going to work with NetSuite. Then what actually can work with NetSuite, right? So then you look for example, tax engine if you are interested in business in different countries, right? You can look for expense solution, how you're going to run your banks, etc. Yeah, how you're going to connect to your Salesforce as a business tool if you use Salesforce, etc. So all the other tools are like growing from this core. So choice of yours.
Okay. So you pick like a vendor, like the general ledger vendor, and then you try to find integration or other providers that can help you with the other needs that your business has.
Yes, yes. So that was the first contract we signed, and after that we signed another like 4 or 5 contracts, I think, with other smaller companies to, for example, get a bank connectivity or expense solution or bank reconciliation, more automated than NetSuite yeah, suggests as a classic solution. So yeah, so after that we had another a few contracts, and then we start the design phase, design testing phase, etc. Yeah.
Uh, okay, I have two questions here. So let's say that you're a startup and you're growing. So I mean, you maybe have a Zero or a QuickBooks, which I guess that's probably the most common solution when you're just starting out.
Mhm.
And then you reach a phase where okay, you need to step up. Like I have two questions. So the first one is from the budget perspective, like how much you should budget for this? Are we talking about millions? Are we talking about
Mhm.
hundreds of years? Like,
No, millions. That's SAP.
okay,
If we, yeah, so if million and more, that's around SAP. That's big companies. Then around a few hundred K, you can depending on your industry again, right? Because you could only want to have a financial solution, but then if you have inventory, then you probably need a warehouse model and logistics, etc., right? A more complex purchasing model. So it's the prices always depend on which models do you need to acquire into your ERP. Yeah, so if we speak about like work dates, yeah, it's a few 100,000, I guess. I don't know, I never really were in contact with them. It's just something I've heard. If we speak about NetSuite, depending on your business, it's something around 30 to 100K, so that's the range approximately. And if we speak about like very small solutions, then yeah, it's 5, 10, 15K a year. So that's more or less. Yeah, if it's just a startup with one person, then you pay what I think 300 euro a year, and you're fine.
Okay. So as a yearly budget, you can consider 50K, and you should be able to step up whatever you have from QuickBooks to zero to the next solution with
Yes,
above
50,
50K.
50K, it's even including, again, if you don't need warehouse logistics and stuff, like a bit more simplistic, then 50K includes even all kind of other solutions you need together with it. Yeah, so 50K is
Mhm.
really the budget, more or less, that you can do something.
Okay. And the other question is like time wise for the implementation. Like from your experience, how long, and in also in your specific case, how long do you think it should take?
depends depends on how much historical data do you have and how much
Mhm.
clearing do you need to do, and again the type of business. Yeah, so I am only mainly focused right now on if we speak about purchasing, then it's just OCR. It's a recognition of the invoice, approval, banking. Yeah, so how do I connect to the bank? How do I send out my payment runs? Expense solution, and then a big cycle of Q2C, quote to cash, I call it. So from sales, so from order, opportunity in Salesforce, and then we have subscription business, so we use subscription, etc. So that is, I think, if you do have a warehouse and logistics, it's approximately half. So right now,
Okay.
so I started, I think, around more actively around March, and next week we should be going live, hopefully. So that's yeah.
Okay. I
So
wish, finger crossed.
yeah, yeah, I have a lot to do. Yeah, so practically 6 months, really depending on the business. If you do have warehouse and logistics, it's then you definitely need to have integration there. I do not advise to go live without integration with a warehouse, because then you will have to clean up a lot in your accounting tool. So yeah, so it could go up to a year, of course, for a bigger company.
Okay. You mentioned your subscription software, and here I'm just guessing. Do you plan to leverage NetSuite billing engine, or you gonna use an external solution?
Yes, we are
Okay.
going to
So
implement suite billing from NetSuite. Generally, I'm happy with it. There is a few things that I did not understand why they designed it like this, but and a couple of small things missing, but we can deal with that. So
okay. Okay. Is billing like? Do you have a complex billing, or it's basically a monthly plan? And okay.
it's a bit complex, yes. So it's
Okay.
not too bad, but yeah, it's a bit, it's monthly, yearly. That there could be also a lot of different scenarios when the customer adds the products in the middle of the subscription and then removes. So yeah, that's the subscription has to be pretty flexible indeed, to do different things.
Did you compare NetSuite with the other provider like Stripe, Chargeify,
We actually
Chargebee?
do have Stripe right now.
Okay.
So the problem with Stripe in our case is that the more you create subscription, the more customers you have, the more you're going to pay to Stripe. And then we calculated Stripe is going to be more expensive if we would move all of our customers there than the whole NetSuite. But Stripe only solves one problem, the subscription. NetSuite does the whole financial thing, right? So next to Stripe, you need to have a financial solution. That's one. Secondly, Stripe subscriptions are not that flexible. There is some issues with those as well. Um, and next to this, you can't easily you can't easily extract any kind of data from Stripe, and you can't really import easily without a developer. Yeah, so they have an SQL engine, but it's not complete. So they're missing some fields there and stuff. So that's not why not Stripe and ChargeBee. Yes, they contacted me a lot. I decided no because I'm not entirely sure which market do they try to get. Yeah, so they are kind of partnering with NetSuite and Stripe, but in the same time, in the subscription part, they are a competitor. In fact, so and like if I can deal with inside model of NetSuite to run my subscriptions, I ideally do not want to purchase another tool and integrate this tool together with NetSuite, right? So, because then I would have a very complex architecture, Salesforce, NetSuite, ChargeBee, and then probably Stripe or IDN. So then I would have a chain of 4 systems. Right now, I would only have 3. Yeah, so that's another reason.
I think this is a great introduction for one of our first topic, which is the tech part. So during the brief that we had together, you mentioned tech, the business operation, people, and data. These are the 4 things that you need to do right. And about the tech part, it seems you're really trying to minimize all the components of your systems.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah, it really seems you're trying to minimize all your like the number of components that you have in your systems.
Well, it's not always, of course, about just minimizing, but about I'm not against integrating systems, right? If you have a really good reason to have more systems, and you can build a very proper and good integration, and you can make sure that you can maintain that integration well over the time, then of course no problem with that. But in this
Mhm.
case, if I have a pre-built model that is working more or less fine, then why to have an extra integration? Because then, first of all, an extra tool it's an expense, right? And I think ChargeBee is also the more you use it, the more you pay. That was the idea. Then the second thing that you need to build an integration, or they probably have some integration, but is that integration good for you? Because I've seen a lot when people were saying we have integration, and then out of the pocket, very easy. But then when I look what is within this integration, it's not entirely what I need. Yeah, so it's like 90%, but not really. So yeah, so that's why you need to be prepared that maybe you need to either sacrifice a little bit something, or you need to build more yourself, or work with this company to build more, so then it's extra hours of consultancy and it's the costs again. Yeah, that's and also you need to sustain that integration, so it's not only enough to build it once, you also need to have maybe some people checking that integration still works, right? Create more controls over integration. If I know, for example, if I get like a subscription and then I have the billing correctly because it's the same document flow within NetSuite, then if I have ChargeBee, I need to constantly check, right, if everything is still running correctly. If the subscriptions that are created and the billing documents have been pushed directly to NetSuite correctly. Yeah. So Yeah, so that's more complex. In fact, if you have people, if you have more budget and so on, yes. If you are really strict in budget, then yeah, you should take it one at a time, the system.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. I mean, especially synchronization of data between the integration and different tools. I think that's really important. Something that I didn't ask, like, are you gonna lead and basically do the implementation all by yourself? I mean, together with the consultant, or is also maybe your tech team or someone else from your team, like from your company, helping you out with this?
Well, I would say it's a completely exceptional case, but it's a
Okay.
mainly one man show right now. No, right now I have some finance guy, of course, helping quite a lot with migration because I'm not really owning their data, right? They're owning their
Hmm.
data. So, and a little bit here, a little bit there. BI team helped me with some reports about the data so I can analyze the customers, etc. Yeah, so it's quite some people involved. However, normally within this project, I would advise to plan the roles well, right? Because as I, for example, I'm working with configurations, but I also need a project manager now because I don't have time to communicate to people everything that is done and on time, etc. So yes, so I would say that take the classic project management more or less. Do not overdo it. Do not bring more people just for the sake of bringing more people. Really think about like who is responsible for which part of the project, which skills do you need exactly. um, yeah, so but right now I'm doing everything from planning and configurations and dealing with consultants. Consultants, we deal a bit in a different way. They just really advise, they're more advisors, so they advise to me and I am doing it myself.
Hmm.
Because more or less internally you want to have an administrator who knows how to do those things. Yeah, how to change certain functionality in NetSuite, how to work with development consultants who can run the scripts for you and stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, so internally you definitely should have at least, even if you're a small company, like half FTE, at least have four administrator of such systems. Yeah.
It's more like a specific role, or is like a finance manager that has a specific knowledge about the tool.
No, no, it can be anyone. You know, when people ask me, is it
Okay.
should be a manager or more like yeah, a junior role? I would say to some extent it doesn't really matter which role it is. It can be a person from IT, in fact, it can be a person from finance, but uh, it's more about the wish of the person to learn more because it's
Hmm.
different a bit world. Yeah, so the person needs to really dig more. So if you take a finance person, then you need to check whether he's interested and have some technical skills or wish to learn something, yeah, about that. If you take more from IT side, from tech side, yeah, somebody, let's say somebody who was working on Salesforce before, yeah, as a developer, not developer, a functional consultant, let's say. Then he needs to know about finance because you can't implement a finance system without knowing anything about finance. Yeah, so because everything is at the end, it's really about tax, which jail account to use, I don't know, debit, credit, and stuff like this. So
I see. Um, so when we talked together the first time, you mentioned, I mean, learning about business operation is fundamental because the first thing is really like improving the process that you already have. Can you tell us a little bit more about this and how you're approaching this at DigiFit?
um, Well, so to start with, currently, if we take an end-to-end quote to cash process, what they have, some people say sales to cash, quote to cash, opportunity to cash. Anyways, it's all about like you make a deal with your customer somewhere in Salesforce. They do, and then you sign up the contract, you provide a service or products, and then you need to bill those customers if it's subscription on a recurring basis, and then get the money in the bank and reconcile those money. So this is the cycle, right? And then somewhere at the end you also have reporting to say you how profitable you are, well, probably something like that. So they, if I took that process, what do they have right now? uh, it was four different, not even five different ways how this process could be different for per type of the customer. Yeah, and on itself it's not so bad if you work with okay, I have retail, e-commerce and wholesale. Yeah, okay, fine, but this is a small business. There is very little amount of customer service people, for example, and if you take a a customer service person, rotation of those people are pretty big, as you can imagine. Small company, right? Like, yeah, every couple of years people change. So if you have a lot of exceptional cases to handle, if you have many different ways to handle the invoicing, right, the person doesn't even have the time to learn that, right, when he comes and goes. So so that's why instead of all these five different ways, I want to bring it to one, right? So one way of working, people know how to handle. Doesn't matter if it's a key account, it's a big customer, or a small customer. They will be handled similar way in terms of technology, right? So the prices can be different. The certain conditions on their contract or subscription can be different. Discounts can be different, but the way how you process these customers is going to be the same. So yeah, so that's practically what I did. So I draw one plan to go forward. We only now migrate part of the customers for go live for October. The next part we will migrate in 2, 3, 4 months after that. The Stripe part actually. So again, right now they're using and IDEN and Stripe is very uncomfortable, right? So we're gonna move towards IDEN only. Yeah, so we'll have only one way of processing payments, and next to this, IDEN is very well integrated with NetSuite. I'm testing it currently with completely for free plugins. So in that case, it's completely for free. If I would go to Stripe, I would need to pay for a consultancy. So
Okay. Okay. So really understanding your business process right now and in case, yeah, improve them and just simplify them. Okay. The other thing that you mentioned was really important was people. Like how you help your team driving the change, but also like implementing these things. Um, you
yeah.
mentioned that
Mhm.
the company is very old, so I guess they had a lot of processes. How are you approaching changing this current behaviors?
Well, it's not too old, but if we take SaaS industry, right? Usually, yeah, they are in the market what for more than 10 years, I think, 13, 14, something like this. They started a bit differently though with B2C than B2B. But 14 years is quite a lot for SaaS company. So yeah, so they do have a lot of legacy behind, definitely. So well, with any automation, right, there's four ingredients, how I say. So the technology that we discussed, the process, and then the data and the people. And people indeed is not the it's one of the most important category indeed, because they are going to do it. Even if you automate, you know how I like this selling speeches when they say, yes, if you take our software, then you are going to spend, let's say, like 30K a year, but you don't need to hire too many people because process will be more automated. It's not entirely true, in fact, because yes, you do not need to hire more people to do manual processes, right? Because like multiple Excel files. True, certain things can be automated. Then you don't need so many Excel files. Great, but you do need the person who will look after the system, right? Who will look after that automated process and maintain it and sustain it in a good quality condition going further. So maybe you don't need two people, but you need, let's say, one person to handle it. But you can imagine that two people that are doing manual job, their salaries are lower than the person who actually sustains the system, right? So it's not really about money saving. It's more about the quality, right? So that's why you are working with certain amount of people, and their mind has to switch a little bit, right? So it's not going to switch from day to day. It's a process, right? So I have we have what's it like 6 7 finance people, let's say. They were doing their process in one way, so they need to switch to a completely different way. And maybe for some process are automated, and some process they would need to control more. So from entering more, they move into controlling more, right? So it's yeah. What can I say about working with people? It's change management is important. It's not something that you can invent in the person just to say from tomorrow we are all going to work differently, we are all going to learn. No, it doesn't work like this with human beings. People work and learn differently. Some people watch, some people write, some people need to do it themselves. Mainly people need to do it themselves. uh, it's very different ways. So we tried, I think, a few different ways with the guys to learn. So one of the ways that did work, but it only works for a small team. That we were gathering up together, not in the office, in my place. Actually, they were doing the testings. They could ask me directly the questions. Then we ended up with a nice barbecue and so on. So everybody is happy and hopefully learn something from this. Yeah, but yeah, you can be quite creative. You can be quite creative. Once when I needed the dedication of motivation of people, and that was a Russian project. So I brought the whole team to Russia to work. So they were not disturbed by all the other things around them, other projects and so on. So they could be focused only on that for 1 week. And then, of course, it's motivation because, yeah, people are from other countries. It's nice to see. It was like restaurants and stuff like this. So, yeah, they were very motivated to work harder, let's say. And the project was successful, more or less. Yeah. So that's
Did you have to explain the reasoning behind this change? Like, do you feel maybe people are maybe fighting against automation?
I think it's it again depends on the person a lot. So because within the project you have different types, right? The rejectors, and then there is all the curves according to the change management. So you can read about it. But generally, most of the people, from my experience, most of the people who are working with this manual stuff, they would be happy if it's gonna change, right? That if it's something that's gonna help them. Why they don't want to change is because A, some people do not want to put effort in learning different things, and B is because they're afraid that these changes not gonna help. Yeah, because if the project manager or somebody comes or from the management and say we're going to do this now, but then actually, let's say it's the third project manager that comes to them, and it's the third time a fail. You know, so then the next person comes with new ideas. They people take it negatively after that. Yeah, so that's why. The first thing first, you need to understand, yeah, if you are doing such a change yourself, whom do you deal with? Yeah, added because people understand, like, yeah, that we are working in four different ways. We don't want to work in four different ways, but we don't know how to get there. So first they need to know, okay, what is the plan. They need to have certain trust in you, and that's an important thing, because when I started, I think the first half a year I tried to gain indeed some trust. So they are aware that I have the knowledge, that I have finance knowledge, I have system knowledge, and I can make it happen. So people really help me and yeah, support me with everything. Yeah, so that's I think the most important thing. And also when people see that you are working hard, they also want to work hard, right? So yeah, not a big secret here, honestly. Just
Okay. So there's no secret recipe for,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
driving the change
just
through people.
you need to sense a bit the people indeed.
And what about data? What do you do when you have a lot of legacy data and maybe the quality is also bad? Or how should you approach the data quality problem?
Yeah, here there is no secret ingredient. Really, it's really, again, it's a lot of hard work, really, step by step. So taking collecting data from different places. No, for example, we have many processes for sales, as I said, right? And then there is a bunch of customers that process like this, a bunch like this, and bunch like that, right? So like a few groups of customers. So now I want to migrate. I need to make sure that the part of the customers I migrate do not cross with other customer master data, right? So I'm not going to double invoice the customer. The one from NetSuite, let's say, the one from Stripe. So this is what it means. So the data work is whatever source you take, you need to make sure that it's reliable source, right? So if, for example, I say, okay, we want this group of customers. Can you provide me those, right? From BI team or whomever. They say, yes, I can. Here it is. I always ask, how did you distinguish? What is the field that you did your filtering on? Yeah, how did you decide that these are the customers that I really need? Is it a field? Is it a set of fields? Is it specific logic behind it? Yeah, so this is, but generally working with data, I would advise, very strongly advise, if somebody works with data, works with automation, then you definitely need to work with data. Do a couple of very simple courses on relational databases, because everything in the system that we are working with is relation. It's relation based on relational databases, right? We don't
Mhm.
in finance, let's say, we don't work with unstructured data. Um, it's very very helpful for people, yeah, like joining data, doing certain analysis or on that, doing certain decisions based on data. You need to know how to build the proper database, because that's what we do in Excel, that's what we do in cleansing of data. We build databases, in fact. It's the only difference is that the tech people build databases using like some programming, like for example, R language, right? Finance people build databases in Excel. Yeah, so that's why when you automate finance, you need vendor master data, customer master data, you need GL accounts, etc. You need to migrate your balances, open items. All of this is data. You need to be able to handle it correctly. So otherwise, garbage in, garbage out. It's really like this. I've seen a lot of projects, a really nice idea, execution is mainly correct. A lot of people are working, but then the crappy data is coming in, and the result is the same. So
Okay.
unfortunately, you can pay a lot for very expensive tool, but then you will screw it up with just a very wrong data. So that's.
I want to switch to a sort of like set of different topics.
Mhm.
Like the, the another question would be, what's the first thing that companies like let's talk about startups or scale up should automate from your perspective?
Sorry again. Mm.
Yeah. So what's the first thing that from the finance perspective,
Ah,
like that startups or scale ups should automate?
it depends on the stage of the scale
Mhm.
startup. Yeah, as a startup, I think the main focus is about selling, promotion, right? Selling. That's their main goal, and this is how it becomes. You just should not lose that moment where your finance, a person or two people or three people, how much you have. Yeah, it's in the beginning, it's not that much. When you started to have that much financial data overload, that where you really need to step a little bit up with those back office systems, right? So because it's not only finance, right? It's also like in business tools like Salesforce, right? Or other CRM tools. It's highly important as well. So you need to find this moment, yeah, and then practically, and then also do not do it yourself. Try to find a very reliable. That's important because there is a lot of consultants, reliable consultants who can actually help you with that. Yeah, to do it. In the very beginning, maybe you don't need. Yeah, you don't need a permanent person, right? You don't have much employees, but a good consultancy, yeah, will do much better because rather than running in the tool for 5 years that is not scalable with your business. I can give you an example. Like for now, the guys do not are not able to verify VAT registrations of the other companies, which is an obligation, and the company can have fines if you don't do it, right? Of your customer. So know your customer to some extent, and the fines can be pretty big. Yeah, as a scale up, you don't have that much money to spend on the fines, right? So you want to be compliant. So yeah, so because they are constantly seeing that there are issues with this VAT registrations, they have to correct them, but they correct them postponed. So instead of inputting the correct ones and have correct invoices, they issue wrong invoices. Then they send it to the tax organization. Then the tax sends it back and say, okay, these are not existing. This is wrong. You have to correct them. So then they reverse all the invoices or issue credit notes and then issue new invoices, which is a lot of manual work, right? So it's much easier to have that VAT corrected from the beginning. And it's not that difficult. It's actually pretty simple to verify when the customer gives you that VAT, is it correct VAT or not? It's not that difficult. So it's just that it has to be incorporated into your systems, right? Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, just to double down on this, I had the pleasure to talk with many either like small startups, but also like bigger startups, and usually they're like sales to finance motion, the order to cash cycle. It's pretty loose, if existent at all. Like usually they have the CRM and then they have the finance team, and this function are completely disconnected. So
yes,
usually it's like, okay, in a spreadsheet, and then I'm going to create the invoice by hand, especially if the customers are big and they're not going on a credit card. So kind of, yeah, mid-sized enterprise customers. Uh,
exactly, exactly.
yeah, there is.
Exactly, and then it also generates a certain churn because if you constantly cannot invoice the customer correctly, at the end, I think he is really tired from this. Then I know of such principle as sleepers, especially if you have a SaaS tool, right? So like people are getting charged, but they are not really, let's say, using, but it's not that much money, so they are like, so they are called sleepers. Yeah, so if you do something wrong, then it's called you will wake up sleepers, right? And then they churn. So that's another reason to just have your finance straight. You only need to do it once, and you need to do it once correctly. Yeah, if you don't change your business nature, if you don't acquire another business or a channel or a sales channel or something like this, then you do it once, you do it right, and you don't have any pain anymore as a headache. Yeah. So yeah, but it's true. I agree. A lot of like what I've heard and what I've seen, it's a very quote to cash is very hard cycle, and yeah, I think companies have a lot of issues with that too.
I have one last question before wrapping up, and so in tech there is an interesting trend, which is like the no low code like set of tools, so you can build your things in the way that you want. You don't need to have any specific knowledge about programming, all these sort of things. Do you see any kind of intersection between this kind of new set of tools and finance automation? Do you think that in the future you're going to build your system as you want because you have the building blocks and you can put them together?
Definitely, yes. In general, I
Okay.
think low code, no code will be used more and more for many different things. I even thinking about like my expense solution. Was it built in low code? because because there were some signs that yeah that it could have been in the low code. Um, no, I definitely think it's great, but do not overestimate it. You are not going to replace an ERP tool with that. Yeah. So I can give you an example. Tax engine. Tax engine. So besides the fact, yeah, if you only do your business in your country and you don't scale up, okay, you can build something and then change. I don't know VAT percentage once the legislation changes, right? But if you work around the world, you can't even to sustain that quality of information every month something changes in the tax world in the whole world, right? So you can't sustain that quality of information to have your tax determined correctly. So don't do that. Don't build a wheel that people already did build. Yeah, if it's working fine, right? However, however, as you will see indeed with NetSuite and the so-called suite apps that they have. So suite apps is like a platform, and many companies develop certain things. Yeah, and they have a lot of suite apps that you can use install in NetSuite. Sometimes it's for free, sometimes it's not for free. For example, IDN plugin is for free, and um, it's similar to me as a mobile world. Yeah, right. So when iPhone started, and then they created a store, and then everybody started to create the apps there, and that's how it became so popular, right? So then it's kind of the same in this way, and I think NetSuite is trying to implement it. So you can indeed build up certain small things, because if, for example, you are in Netherlands, well, one of those things that SAP is trying to do is they are doing localizations, right? So they have certain localization packages for a specific country that's supposed to solve all the local problems if your company is registered there. Well, it's not true. It's not true completely, because in some countries there's very hard legislation. It changes all the time, and SAP just doesn't have resources to sustain it all the time. So NetSuite took a different route. They say, okay, guys, please develop as much as you want in your particular local markets, and we are going to work together as partners. And yeah, the companies can use your apps. This is the future. Yeah. um, but yeah, again, so depending on what, if we speak about integrators like Zapier, this is a no code right integrator, iPaaS, yeah, more or less. It's very easy to use, and it's very useful from my yeah, from my opinion. However, if you want to use it in a very difficult cycle like quote to cash, it won't be possible. Yeah, because for maybe you can solve a very small particular problem of yours, but you're not gonna really build the whole cycle based on this. So for now, to integrate, for example, Salesforce and NetSuite with this particular suite billing module, it's a very complex task. So it's not a simple integration that can be done in low code. Yeah, so it's really you really need a yeah a developer who would write a few scripts for you, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
So for there's no like direct integration with within Salesforce and NetSuite. You need to build your custom integration.
that depends for what. That's again like
Okay.
what exactly do you want to integrate? If you want to integrate the full cycle, including the suite billing, and this is the most problematic thing. So the suite billing, from the experience that I got already, it already changed the consultants. In fact, yeah, suite billing is very difficult, and that's why yeah, you need to do a bit extra rather than what they have, yeah, so far. So they have certain templates already developed, you can use them, but no, in some cases you really need to do it differently. So
Okay. Well, Natalia, it was super interesting. I guess now it's time to wrap up. Usually, what I like to ask is a round of five quick questions.
mhm.
Are you ready for them?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the first one is what is the best career advice that you ever received?
Oh, it's a fast one. Don't give up.
Don't give up. Okay, okay. Next one. What is your main passion outside of work?
At work,
No,
uh,
outside of work.
outside of work, design. I like home design, snowboarding. Yeah, and I have a dog, so like animals. hmm
Okay, pretty nice. Is there any book that you would recommend to our audience?
No, honestly, no, because I read a lot of articles usually, because world is changing so quickly, especially in this world, right? Like if we if you want to do something, I mean, not particularly you, but the listener, something with finance or business automation, then you need to think in these four categories: technology, data, processes, and people, right? So then, for technology, there is no other way to learn technology rather than to use it. Yeah. So do not watch some instruction videos for the software that you're not gonna have and you're not gonna use. It's useless. Maybe just very high level, but rather than that, it's useless. Processes. Yeah, that's really yeah, just learn by doing. Yeah, so it's really question why things are like this and not like that, why we're doing certain things this way, and yeah, etc. Data is really about relational databases, so I would just advise to watch a couple of courses, and that should be fine. Try yourself. The next time you're going to do something in Excel, you will like think about this normalizational rules in relational databases. That yeah, some of them should be known. uh, and if we speak about people, that's really yeah, a lot of articles like Harvard Business Review, right? And like to read the economists and generally, yeah, but otherwise webinars is helpful. So that's
Uh, just to recap on this, so yeah, I was curious about if you have any suggestion about like how to get like how to keep yourself like up to date with these things. So you mentioned HBR. Um,
depending with what, right? Again, like soft skills, yes. So soft skills you can learn a lot through webinars, through some Udemy, Coursera, Harvard Business Review, The Economist, and it's like reading articles about this and that, right? But hard skills are only based on either courses or your own work. You really need to do hands-on
okay,
job. So
so there is no magazine about technology, basically.
about finance technology, I don't know actually. Maybe there is, but maybe I should start a course actually on that. I'm thinking. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just to give you a reply on this, I think course is will be very welcome. just because people don't know how to start. And I mean, the baseline is a spreadsheet. And then what do you have? You have maybe vendors or more like traditional vendors. It could be accounting software or ERP. And usually what they do, they promise the word. So once you implement this, you're going to get like basically you can just drink your coffee and then we're going to take off your job, which is far from reality. But yeah, so having someone with experience from the trenches that knows, okay, these are the things you should look for and all these sort of things.
I would
I think
say,
it's really important.
I would say, start at your own workspace, right? So, like everybody's working somewhere. You definitely work with certain softwares. You definitely work with certain spreadsheets. I started at PVH with cleaning up GL accounts. They had like 8,000 GL accounts. I cleaned them up to 1,500. Yeah, so then I tried to do something with a fixed evaluation. But then when I did the fixed evaluation, well, I started to do it. I understood that to automate this, you need to automate intercompanies. So then the ball started to run, so to roll. Sorry, yeah. So yeah.
Okay, next question. Is there anything specific that you're learning right now?
Uh, right now, since I'm implementing NetSuite, mainly NetSuite, so NetSuite from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 in the evening.
Okay.
Right now, this, but I uh, from this field, from my.
No, it could be also something totally
Ah,
unrelated.
no, I want to learn Bubble. That's a no-code platform to build
Okay.
yeah, apps and stuff.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. And last question: if you were not a finance expert, what else would you do?
Snowboarding.
Snowboarding. Okay. Okay. So if people want to find out more about Digifit, about your company, I guess they can visit the website, digifit.eu.
It's called
And if people
Virtuagym
want,
now. Oh, sorry.
sorry.
It's called Virtuagym, virtuagym.com.
Okay. So because I think I still have your old email,
Yeah,
so now you changed the
we
name.
have both domains. So
Okay. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
LinkedIn. Yeah.
LinkedIn. Okay. So I'm gonna share your LinkedIn profile in the show notes, and so people can get in touch with you if you have any question, and I'm sure they will. Natalia, thank you for joining me today. It was really a pleasure. I really learned a lot, and wishing you the best.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.